Kafka's kit centers around applying and detonating damage over time, thereby front-loading the otherwise backloaded nature of dots. Her basic attack is the standard basic attack, and ideally you'll never be using it, so you don't have to bother leveling it up. Her skill deals lightning damage to a primary target and splash damage to adjacent targets. This attack does not apply shock, but it does detonate any existing dots currently on the primary target for a certain percentage of their original damage. Because it doesn't apply a dot itself, ideally you always want to target an enemy that already has a dot applied. Her ultimate does AoE lightning damage to all enemies, applies shock to them, and causes them to take a certain percentage of any shock they are currently afflicted with, including the shock applied by her ult. Her talent is a follow-up attack that deals lightning damage and applies shock to a single target that is triggered once per turn when an ally uses their basic attack on said target. She begins battle with her talent active, and it is reset when she uses her skill following its use. Her technique attacks enemies in a point-blank AoE, which begins battle dealing lightning damage to all enemies and inflicts shock equivalent to that of her ultimate for 2 turns. This is an attacking technique, so use any buffing techniques first. Her A2 major trace causes her ultimate to detonate all dots currently applied to enemies instead of just her own shock, so this one is very strong. Her A4 trace regenerates 5 energy for Kafka when an enemy is defeated while shocked, and her A6 passive increases the base chance of all her shock application by 30%. Which, thanks to this as well as the EHR from her minor traces, she only needs about 28% total EHR to guarantee her shock application. You definitely want to unlock all of them, even though her A4 is technically a little bit less important than the other two, but you want the minor traces that it unlocks. Her minor traces being a total of 28% extra attack, 18% effect hit rate, and 10% HP. All of her Eidolons are very strong, particularly E6 for personal damage, E1 and E2 for personal and team damage, especially when running her with other dot dealers. Her E1 does change her effect hit rate needs though, which I'll explain when I get to the stats. E3 and E5 are of course the increase to her attack multipliers, and E4 gives Kafka some extra energy, which she doesn't struggle with, but it could help getting her ult back earlier in some cases. As for the topic of dot Kafka versus crit Kafka, both are very strong and viable, so build her however you want, but the way that I see it is she has a unique kit that revolves around damage over time, which enables different team comps and a really fun playstyle. So as far as I'm concerned, her dot focus build is the better one, regardless of whatever numbers you can come up with. We have enough crit focus DPS units already with a lot more to come, so why just make Kafka be another one when she can actually bring something new? That being said, either way you choose to build her, her best general relic set is the 4-piece band of Sizzling Thunder, but you can mix and match any 2-piece of Sizzling Thunder, Musketeer of Wild Wheat, or Hackerspace depending on substats. The 4-piece Genius of Brilliant Stars set can situationally actually be her best in slot, especially against quantum weak enemies and if you're running her with Pela and or Silverwolf due to the way Defense Shred works. For planar ornaments, Space Sealing Station is her best set in all cases. For main stats, you'll want an attack percent body, speed boots, the lightning damage orb, and an attack percent rope. And for substats, aim for at least 120 speed for the Space Sealing Station set effect, but 134 speed or higher is ideal. Then you want attack percent, speed, break effect doesn't hurt, and just enough effect hit rate to hit 28% without her signature light cone and or E1, but 67% is the target to hit if you have either or both and want to guarantee their effects. Speaking of light cones, her best in slot is of course her signature Patience is All You Need, as it was designed for her, but it is closely followed by Good Night and Sleep Well, especially at high superimpositions. Her best free-to-play light cone is definitely Fermata, which you can get completely free up to superimposition 5 from the Forgotten Hall shop. In the Name of the World can be a good stat stick, and though better on someone like Sampo especially, Eyes of Prey is an okay option if it's all you have, as the 20% EHR it gives on top of her traces allows you to not need a single EHR substat on your relics at E0. For teams, Kafka can detonate her own dots, which she applies a lot of, so she doesn't need another dot teammate, but her ability to also detonate their dots increases overall team damage, though it's still a good idea to run her with someone like Luca or Sampo, depending on who you have, your preference and/or elemental coverage. For supports, someone like Asta is a great teammate for Kafka thanks to her attack and speed buffs. Mingyun could also work if you want to use her, and Pela and Silverwolf are both amazing for her thanks to their defense shred and Silverwolf's weakness implant if you need it. And finally, of course, you'll want to sustain, being a healer or shielder, again depending on your roster and needs for the specific fight. These are just of course examples, so play around with team comps as you please and find what works best for you and the content you're facing. As always, thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe for more videos to come, and I will see you next time.